The world is already going to try to tell your child what they can and can't do, who they can and can't be. The last thing you want is for them limiting themselves. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. I am Cherie Lynette, and today I am excited to share with you something that is very near and dear to my heart, because not only was I a special education teacher, but I also am a mom homeschooling a child with special needs. And so I know how scary, terrifying, exciting, exhilarating, the whole roller coaster of emotions it can be with wanting to homeschool a child with special needs. And so there's 3 tips that I wanted to give you today when it comes to homeschooling a child with special needs. Now, all 3 of these tips are very important, but one of the main ones I want you to remember and to focus on is, what is the purpose of education? When you are thinking of homeschooling your child with special needs, especially, you have to remain rooted on what is the purpose of this, because school has you feeling like the purpose of school is to get good grades so that you can graduate and then you can go get a job. But the purpose of an education is not to get good grades. Grades are just supposed to tell us like how we're performing on something so we know if we need to work on it more. That's what grades are for. The purpose of an education is to prepare our children for adulthood. And that means physically, mentally, making sure we give them like all the skills they need to hopefully live a happy, fulfilled, successful life. And coming from not only going through the public school district, but also being a teacher, that was something that I really had to like reprogram my brain to understand that this isn't about grades. This isn't about like trying to keep my child on pace with other children, because as a teacher, that's my job to try to like get everybody on the same page so I can move them forward at the same time. But that's not how children actually learn. So if you're in tune with the goal, I want my child to be a happy, successful adult who can read, write, do all the basic things, but also feel emotionally safe, know how to handle their emotions, know how to take care of themselves. Then you have to start looking at their education as a holistic experience and not just subjects. So a lot of moms ask me, don't know how to fit everything in with all their therapy. Well, if your child has a ton of therapy, which my son didn't have that much, but it still took up time. He was in feeding therapy for a while. He had speech therapy. At one point, we were even driving an hour away for me to take him to a specialist. And so it does become part of your routine. That is part of their school. Now, with my son personally, he was language delayed, his comprehension was low, and he had strong food aversions. Like, I could not get this boy to eat anything, which is why we put him in feeding therapy. And getting him to eat and getting proper nutrition is important for his growth, for his development. One of the things that I need for him to do in order to become a successful adult, helping him understand our language and being able to understand what I'm saying and communicate back with me with his speech. All of these are essential skills that he needs to be a happy and successful adult. So this is a part of his schooling. We don't necessarily see it that way because it's not a subject, but you have to understand when you're homeschooling a child with a special need, their needs are special, not because there's something wrong with them. It's just because it's not as typical as a child their age. That's it. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means they develop at a different pace, and that's okay. So with my daughter, who was like talking my ear off at 1, my son wasn't saying anything, didn't make my anything wrong with my son. We just needed more time working on his speech. So I considered his speech a part of our school time. If he wasn't ready to do what neurotypical kids or kids on his age are doing, that's okay. Because right now the focus is on let's get him here and then we will get him there. My second tip is to be very cognizant of the mindset that your child is having. What do they think about themselves? What do they believe about themselves? I know some children are aware of if they have a diagnosis, some children are not. Now, with our son, when he was little, we didn't know how to tell him, like about his diagnosis. We didn't really know if he could understand. So we tried to tell him like in a way that we thought would be helpful. We were just like, hey, nothing's wrong with you. We know you struggle with your emotions sometimes. We know like things can be frustrating for you. You can't express yourself. You don't always understand us and blah, blah, blah. But we were like, it's just because your brain works differently and everybody's brain works differently, but your brain works in this way and it makes it hard for you. And let me tell you, that little boy ran with this information, like ran with it. Everything he did was like, oh, because my brain, doing stuff he knew he had no business doing. He knew better. This boy would knock over a cup and be like, oh, my brain. It's my brain, mommy. I couldn't help it. And so we were like, oh, no, we got to fix this. We got to he has to understand that he does have control of himself. Things are difficult for him. Yes, there's some things that are more challenging for him, but ultimately he has control over like the tools on how to manage these things. So we gave him a little gummy. Not a gummy. We gave him a vitamin gummy and we were like, oh, that was the magic gummy. Like your brain's all better now. And he was like, really? We're like, yeah, you're good to go, but like your brain's all better now. And he completely started acting different. Now, did he still struggle with his emotions? Yes, of course. He did. But it wasn't like, oh, I can't help it, my brain. It was just like, okay, you're feeling angry right now. What are the tools you have? And then he'd be like, okay, I need to take a deep breath or calm down, or like he walk away. So he couldn't put it on anything outside of him. But that mindset shift was a big eye-opening thing where it's like, okay, the things that we tell him are going to show him what he believes he can and cannot do. So when it comes to homeschooling a child or raising a child with special needs, you want to be very, very aware of like the messaging that you're sending them. If you're constantly telling them that they can't do things because they can't help it, and they accept that as their truth, it's not going to stop where you think it's going to stop. I mean, it's going to go across the board. And the last thing you want is the world is already going to try to tell your child what they can and can't do, who they can and can't be. The last thing you want is for them limiting themselves. One of the biggest things that I did see with my students when I was teaching was that a lot of them did have low self-esteem. A lot of them did struggle with self-worth. A lot of them didn't believe that they could, do things or be great at things because they had already made up in their mind, like, well, I'm in this class with these other kids and, this isn't the regular math class. Something's wrong with me. They've already started to go down this path of like feeling they're not good enough, not worthy, and have this mindset. So this is a huge thing for me. I'm already a big mindset person as for myself, for everybody, on how you speak to yourself, how you speak to your children. But when it comes to a child with special needs, I feel like this is even more important because they have so many more obstacles to go through than maybe a neurotypical child, that you want to make sure that I don't care what your diagnosis is. I don't care what the doctors have said. You can do and you can be anything that you put your mind to and you want to be. It does not mean it's going to be easy, but you want your child to understand that nobody should be able to ever tell them what they can and can't do, what they're capable of, including us as parents. Like it's not not on us to limit what we think they can and can't do. Like that, we don't put that limit on them. So mindset. It is the huge thing that I think a lot of parents don't think about, the huge impact it has when it comes to homeschooling a child with special needs. Last tip is just honestly, the hardest part is just being confident. You have to be so confident in your decision to homeschool. You have to be so confident in your decision to find the answers for your child. Having a child with special needs, it's scary. It's it's a lot. You don't always know. I didn't know if my son was ever going to speak. I didn't. Nobody could tell me answers because nobody knew. All I knew was that I was going to do whatever I could to get him any help, any resources I could. I was going to make sure he was able to grow up in a safe space without people calling him bad or dumb or stupid or whatever. His foundation be here in a safe place where he can grow and form before I put him in that world where people want to say what they want to say and do what they want to do. That stuff can bounce off of him because he already has a sense of who he is because he grew up with that strong foundation. As a parent, the hardest part is you being okay with you taking the hits of people judging you for homeschooling your child already, but homeschooling your child who has special needs, being okay with knowing that you're giving your child what they need, but maybe this person over here, their child's the same age and their child's doing things that your child isn't doing. It's not easy. Like my sister and I were pregnant at the same time. She had her baby 6 months before me, but you know, our kids are the same age, and watching her daughter develop and then watching my son develop, it was hard because I was just like, am I doing something wrong? Like, should I be doing more? And I had to get to the place where I was just so confident and like, look, this is my son's journey. That's her daughter's journey. And thank God she's healthy, she's flourishing, but my son is healthy and flourishing too. He's just doing it at his pace and his time and his way. And I had to shift my whole perspective and get such a confidence of like, for one, homeschooling is the best decision for my children. I know I'm giving them every resource that they need. I know my son would not do well in school. He can't sit still. His emotional outbursts when he was younger, I would have just been up at that school all the time anyway. So you have to just like block out all the noise. If it's family, if it's friends, if it's strangers, girl, don't even entertain it. You just have to block it off and focus so much on your child that you know what you're doing, what's best for them. All right, guys, these are my 3 tips on homeschooling a child with special needs. I really think these are so important. Remember to focus on what they need as far as therapies or whatever, moving at their pace. Remember, prioritize their personalized education. Don't be worrying about what everybody else is doing. Personalized to them. Focus on mindset. Do not let anybody tell them what they are or not capable of, because we program our kids. They believe what we tell them first and foremost, especially when they're little. You start putting that foundation into them now, because when they get older, they start listening to the influence of outer people. If they don't have that strong foundation when they're little, they're just going to be so easily swayed into believing things that aren't necessarily true about themselves. And finally, as y'all know, just be confident. You decided to homeschool your baby. You know why you decided to homeschool. You know you felt like this would be best for them. Trust that, lean into that. I'm telling you, as a former special education teacher, it is an amazing thing if you can. If you can give your babies the experience of being homeschooled and their needs being addressed in a safe and loving environment, that is a priceless gift. Guys, again, thank you so much for watching today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you next time.